can think in a million years you would have pointed at it as bankrupt. And he wasn't even trying to.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming and joining us this morning. This is a huge opportunity. My name is Lori Stone. I'm the local state representative for Warren and Centerline, the west side of Warren and Centerline. Thank you for joining me for this discussion on elder abuse. It's a very issue that is very concerning to our community. Not a day passes that we don't get a call into the office or that someone doesn't stop me on the street and share a scenario in which something has happened, whether it's a phone scam or someone has been taken advantage of, they've lost their savings, and so it is great to have a partner in the AG's office who is working so diligently. I just want to take an opportunity to introduce Dawn Jakubowski. She is one of my staffers. She is a fellow resident here in Warren, so she knows our community well. And she is usually the first voice you hear when you call for constituent assistance. In the first 6 months, we've been working hard both in Lansing and in district in order to make sure that we're getting resources, needs met, and addressing the issues that are so important to our community. What do we have? Over 700 constituent requests already in the first 6 months. So you're keeping us busy, and we're glad to be here to serve you. We also reached out to several local community resources to make sure that, once this discussion has happened, we can help put people in touch with people right here in our community who are here on a daily basis to serve you. So as part of that question and answer, and before you leave, make sure you visit and stop and talk to our community. I am thrilled that Attorney General Dana Nessel has come here to Warren to have this conversation. She is working so hard, and from day one in January, she had issues she knew that we needed tackled. We needed advocates. We needed to make sure that legal actions, legal protections, and that this was a voice for us as citizens, not for businesses, not for industry, but someone who is hearing what you say when you call, when you email, when you post to the website. And in her office, her staff is here to help and support you. As a state representative and from the legislative perspective, we have a package of elder abuse bills that I've helped co-sponsor. And so I guess that's where we're going to lead off. Thank you for coming to speak with the citizens. So please join me in welcoming Attorney General Dana Nessel.
Thanks, first of all, I just want to thank Lori so much for inviting me to come here to address all of you. One of the big reasons that I wanted to run for Attorney General is because, like I'm guessing many of you remember the days of Frank Kelly being our AG. How many people here remember Frank Kelly? Okay, most people. So he was Attorney General for 37 and a half years in Michigan. He was the longest serving state AG anywhere in the nation. He still is today, although I think Tom Miller in Iowa is inching up on him. So I think Frank's probably going to take him out before that happens, so he can maintain his legacy. That's a joke. It's not looking to do anything to Tom Miller. But the thing that he was known for was that he was just this great consumer advocate. He was out there all day, every day, working on behalf of consumers in the state. And then he left office, and over the course of the last several terms there, I just haven't really seen the same sort of tenacity in terms of fighting for consumers on a variety of issues that I had seen when he was in office. So I just thought, that's the number one thing I want to bring back to this office. Just being incredibly aggressive, fighting against whomever, whether they were, companies that were ripping people off, or utilities that weren't charging fair rates, that we needed to be as aggressive as possible. But a lot of that, of course, involved protecting seniors. And so I made a commitment when I ran for office that would be a very big part of the work that I did, and so I'm trying to fulfill that as best I can. And unfortunately, one of the things I learned over the course of the campaign is just how prevalent issues are related to elder abuse in our state. And so, we are a state of nearly 10 million people, and the estimate is that by 2030, of our 10 million people in the state, 2 million of us will be 65 or older. So this is really a critical time for us to do everything we can to make certain that seniors and other vulnerable adults in Michigan are properly protected. We have currently, unfortunately, approximately 73,000 incidents of elder abuse in Michigan every year. And those are just the ones that are reported that we know about. I mean, God knows how many seniors are being exploited, and they just never report it. And that is of grave concern to me. So there's different kinds of elder abuse. There's the physical abuse, financial exploitation, emotional abuse, neglect, and many other symptoms that are endemic when you talk about this problem. And so it's not, of course, only just the physical harm to people, but it's also the theft of their resources that people have spent their entire lives working so hard to save. And then, unfortunately, when you become victimized as a senior, you don't have the same opportunity that you otherwise would to recoup those losses. And once that money is gone, it's never coming back. So we have to do everything we can to be vigilant. So some of the things that we do at the office, and I want to make you aware of, we have a consumer protection division which handles tens of thousands of consumer complaints each and every year, many of which involve older adults who are specifically targeted. And they're targeted for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons is our seniors in our state have just done an amazing job of saving. And it's, I think it's always a bad idea to pit generation against generation, but the fact is people who are 65 or older have worked very hard to save the money that they have, and many people have pensions or Social Security. So because con artists know that they are a ripe target because they're more likely to have some savings, they're often victimized more than other generations are. So some of the scams that we're seeing, if I can talk about these, how many people here have seen the, they call it the grandparent scam or the emergency scam? Does anybody know about a lot? I'm so happy that most of you seem to know about this. So this is an effort to fleece seniors out of their money, oftentimes posing as a family member, maybe as a grandchild, or some other relative that's in distress and in immediate need of money, and we're seeing a huge spike in these cases. And our office actually issued in concert with AARP a consumer alert about this because we were seeing it happen so often. We were seeing a lot of people who were falling for it, and it's easy to do, especially if you get a call and it's the middle of the night and you're a little bit groggy, and you hear a voice and somebody identifies themselves as your grandchild, and they say whatever, they've been arrested and they need bond money and they need it immediately, but somehow that bond money has to be paid in a gift card or something, or it has to be wired immediately. And of course, this is a family member that you love, and you think that the matter's urgent, and you want to help. That's a natural impulse to have. But let me say this: if anyone ever calls you unsolicited, and you did not reach out to them, and they say that they immediately need money, that should be a red flag. No one immediately needs your money in the middle of the night. And if that's how you're being asked to write a check or to provide your personal information, do not give it, because it is likely a scam. There's Social Security scam. Has anyone heard about that? Anybody actually had that even maybe happen to them? A few people here. Well, that's where a senior will get contacted and they're told that their Social Security money is in danger somehow, and that the Social Security office is calling you and needs to confirm your information, your very personal information right away. It's a scam. Social Security office is not calling you over the phone to confirm your information. They will never ever do that. And if you receive that kind of call or an email and you're concerned, do not respond to that email. Do not respond to that phone call. What you need to do is during business hours, you will actually call the number that you know for a fact is Social Security, and you can call them and ask if there are any issues. Don't respond if you get a phone call. Don't respond if you get an email. You know, some of these counters are great at having emails that actually look exactly like what the real website will look like. And, you know, they've spent a lot of time and energy and effort to scam you out of your money. But if it's unsolicited, you didn't ask for that, don't respond to it. And if you're concerned, you can either contact those offices directly or you contact my office at the Department of Michigan Attorney General, and we'll make certain that it is not a scam, or we'll confirm for you that it is. Medical device scams. Anybody have that? Okay, so a few people have seen that. It's usually a brace for some reason. They're all over this, so it's a brace. You'll, you know, you'll get a call and you'll be told that you can get free medical equipment, and oftentimes sometimes they're scamming you, sometimes they're scamming Medicare, but they'll promise it to you and they'll say there's no cost to you, and you'll probably think to yourself, well, I didn't really know I needed a brace. Like, why are you offering this to me? But hey, it's free, maybe I could use it, you know? Well, that's a scam, and they'll trick you into authorizing something that you didn't even need, and then they'll bill it to Medicare. So remember, no one's going to call you on the phone and offer you some piece of medical equipment that your doctor's never talked to you about unless they're scamming you. So something that you probably see a lot right now because it's summertime, the home improvement and home repair scams. You guys see anybody's had any issues with that? Show of hands. Okay, good. Not too many in this room, but you do see this a lot. And what most frequently happens is somebody will just come to your house and you'll think, well, I didn't, you know, think that I needed any work done on my driveway or on my roof or anything else, but somebody will come by and tell you suddenly that you need work that you never called anybody at all about. And maybe they're working on, you know, some house or condo, you know, that's down the street, and they have extra supplies, and they can do this really cheap, but you got to do it right away. Right away. You don't have time to investigate or call the Better Business Bureau or look them up online. They're going to offer you this service, but it's got to be immediate. And if that happens to you, it is likely a scam. And remember, whatever the service is, and I don't care if it's purportedly a bank or a doctor's office or whatever it is, you don't have to give out personal information or give out money immediately. That is always a red flag, and I would always caution you about that. And something that I want to talk about a little bit too is what we call spoofing. Does everybody know what spoofing is, just by show of hands? Okay, let me explain it because it's really important. And it should be illegal. And I'm horrified that it's still not illegal. But what it is, it's a practice where someone can call you and they can pretend that they are calling from any number at all. And that's why you get so many calls that it seems like they're calling from a local number, but they're maybe calling you from Delaware or something. So you guys 586 out here, right? So you'll get a call from a 586 number that maybe is closely mirrors your number, in fact. And then, you know, you think, well, this must be somebody calling me locally. But that's because companies can pay to call you from whatever number they want. And the worst part is they can pretend that they're calling from a hospital. They can pretend they're calling from your bank. They can pretend they're calling from anywhere. And so that's why it's so critically important, never, never, never to give out your personal information, your social security number, your date of birth, anything like that to someone that you didn't call. If somebody's returning your call because you called them first, well, that's different. But if somebody's calling you and you never called them, they're likely spoofing you and they're pretending that they are somebody that they're not. So whenever you get that, and again, when you're not sure, say, thank you, I'm going to look the number up for myself and call back. And it might be the exact same number that you got called in from, only the call you're getting is not really from that number. But when you call back, you know that you're contacting the right place. So it's critically important to always remember that. And again, if you didn't make the contact, don't give out your personal information. So I want to talk a little bit about robocalls, because I mean, I've seen everybody shaking their head and rolling their eyes, and that's the thing I will say is that impacts all of us. And you know, for a while it's just sort of like a nuisance, and then after that you realize it's really an interference in your life, just in your daily life all the time. And I will say that seniors are specifically targeted. And you might think, well, how do they know I'm a senior? Well, there's all different kinds of ways that people can find out personal information about you on the internet these days. And so if you feel like maybe you're getting more calls than your kids or grandkids are, you're right, you probably are. And that's why you have to be the most careful. So I want to talk a little bit about the work that my office is doing on robocalls. And you know, I decided that Michigan ought to be in the forefront of this fight, because I see so many Michiganders all over the state that are impacted by this, and by the number of robocalls that we're receiving all day, every day. And it's been a difficult problem to deal with. I'm not going to lie about that, because there are a lot of technological issues that make it difficult, and a lot of these calls are coming in from out of the country, and they're hard to track down. But what we are doing is we're launching a major robocall crackdown initiative this year. And what I'd like is for Michigan to be a leader amongst all 50 states in terms of the fight back against robocalling. So let me talk about some of the things that our initiative is going to include. Firstly, a major educational component for Michigan citizens, a ramped up and creative enforcement component that's going to target the large-scale scammers and other players in the robocall world. A legislative agenda, and this is where Lori is going to come in, and I know she's going to want to come in and sponsor a bill for us that we're helping to craft to give our office all the tools we need to aggressively crack down. Because the thing is, we can hate it as much as we like, but if we don't have penalties for this, well then nobody's going to stop doing it. If you're not threatening to put people in jail or prison, or threatening huge, massive fines, they're not going to stop doing it. And so that's why we need laws that reflect the new technology. And we're going to be cooperating with state attorneys general and the federal government all across the nation on these efforts, because unfortunately some of the worst offenders when it comes to robocalling firms are right here in our state. So we're looking to get residents involved, but we are requesting that you file a complaint on our website when you get these robocalls, and also the FTC website, because we don't know to look into it if we don't know what's happening out there, and that's the only way we can investigate. So we need your cooperation. We need you to partner with our office in doing this. So while we're working to establish all these initiatives, I just want to give you some tips when it comes to robocalling to avoid becoming a victim of some really malicious stuff that's out there. Well, firstly, and I'm sure a lot of you know this, but avoid answering numbers you don't recognize, even if it's the same area code, unless you're actually expecting a call from that number or from that area code, of course, if it's somebody that you know and you have their number that's programmed into your phone. Now, if there is a pause and you do answer, that means it's probably a telemarketer or a robocaller using an auto dialer. And so if you pick up and there's a pause, just hang up immediately. If it's an automated message that you get, and I'm sure all of us get those, right? It's illegal. Hang up immediately. Never, again, I can't stress this too much, and I'm sorry for being redundant, but it's so important. Never give out your personal information, even if they threaten you, even if they claim to be the government. Do not give out your personal information. You know, again, you can always call back when you hear whoever they purport to be. You just find out who they are, and then you look up the number on your own, you call them back. Sign up for the federal Do Not Call list and consider downloading a robocall blocking app that your cell phone provider can suggest to you. And if you're like me, you'll have to go to your kids and ask them to help you with that. Because I so badly wanted a Bitmoji because I think they're so cool. And but then I realized that I was not sophisticated enough to make the Bitmoji. And then when my kids made them for me, it was not flattering. So I'm off of the Bitmoji thing now, but it's really important and it is helpful. And it's not gonna block every robocall, but it's gonna help. And think about it. What if you only got, half of the robocalls that you're getting now? That would already be an improvement, right? So something that I suggest you do. And if you get any calls, please just try to report as many of these calls as you can to us at the AG's office, mi.gov/AG complaints, and we'll give you all that information. Another thing we do at the AG's office, our Health, Education, and Family Services Division, and we work with Adult Protective Services and the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs when they supervise adult foster care and assisted living homes. So that's something that we have at our office. And if you have any concerns about issues involving APS or adult foster care or assisted living, please, our office is the place to go with those complaints. We also have a healthcare fraud division. Now that investigates and prosecutes Medicaid fraud and crimes against nursing home residents. And of course, we do have a difference between nursing home and assisted living. And unfortunately, this is one of the things that we'll get to later when I talk about the work we're doing against elder abuse. We at least have pretty good regulation in terms of nursing homes. When I say that, I don't mean that they're regulated well enough, but we have laws that allow them or mandate their regulation. You can close them otherwise. Unfortunately, assisted living homes, you just don't have the same regulations in place. And that is a big problem, and that's something we need to work on because you ought to be just as well protected at an assisted living home as at a nursing home. So you might have seen some of our recent news releases that we've put out on this about caregivers who are neglecting and sometimes even abusing vulnerable nursing home and adult foster care residents. And so, we've been very, very aggressive about this. And, my philosophy about it is this. Some people think, listen, people who work at nursing homes tend to be understaffed, underpaid, and we shouldn't be pointing the finger at them, and we should be pointing the finger at the folks who run these homes. And that's true, don't get me wrong, we should be paying closer attention. But I guess the way I look at it is that when you have a plan that's put in place for a very vulnerable adult that has especially mobility problems, and they need help getting around, they need help getting into bed, they need help getting into a wheelchair, and you don't follow that plan, and you drop that person, and they break their spine, or they break their neck, or they break a hip. First of all, a lot of times that's life-ending for them. And if it's not life-ending, you've ruined the rest of their life. So it's really serious. So I've decided to be really aggressive about this because I want people to be paying as much attention as they need to, as they are required to when they're handling people who are vulnerable. Because, that's our loved ones, and it's us. And, we deserve to be treated. Everybody deserves to be treated properly in this state. So if people are neglecting or are causing grievous injuries to happen, we have to hold them accountable, and so that's what we're doing. So another thing we're doing at our office that I want to bring your attention to is the Special Litigation Department, and we've become very, very aggressive in ensuring that the utilities don't run all over us in terms of raising our rates. Now, one of the things I was astonished to find when I took over at the AG's office is that our rates for gas and electric in Michigan were 30% higher than comparable Midwestern states that had the same weather as us. 30% higher. And quite honestly, that's because nobody was keeping companies like DTE and Consumers and various other, Semco, all these other utilities in check. And they would put in, like every year, they'd have a request to raise their rates, and it was always something. It was tree trimming, or it was some other issue related to the grid. And nobody did anything about it. And so I decided to become very aggressive. We've intervened in dozens of cases. I'm really proud to say just this year alone that we have saved consumers over $300 million. In fact, we just filed another intervention in terms of another effort by DTE to raise our rates again. And listen, I understand that there are things that happen that cause the utilities sometimes to have to raise our rates, but they better be able to justify why they need that. And if they are going to do that, then maybe our power shouldn't go out 12 times in a year. And one of the things that I've done is I've kind of gone after the Public Service Commission to say, you know what, if we are entitled to rebates because our power has gone out for a certain length of time, don't make us go to the utility company. That should be automatically credited to us. And so I was very vocal about that last week, and you know what? DTE said, yep, you're right, we should be doing that. And so I think we are going to start seeing automatic credits, but I don't want it to be voluntary on their part. And I want it to be mandated by the Public Service Commission. The other thing that's important to me is this. You shouldn't get $25 as a rebate whether your power's out for, a day and a half or 7 days or 10 days. It should be based on how long your power is out. So that's another thing that we're being really aggressive on, and we're trying to get them to revisit that to ensure that you're properly compensated, because you lose everything in your refrigerator. How many times do you just went to the grocery store and then your power's out and you lose everything, and especially if you're on a fixed income, you can't afford that. So you ought to be properly compensated for it. So that's one of the things we're doing. Our healthcare fraud division also works in tandem with our financial crimes division on elder abuse crimes. And so the healthcare fraud team focuses on physical abuse, while the financial crimes houses the elder financial crimes unit. And so we work in concert with law enforcement. We prosecute these large-scale financial exploitation cases like Ponzi schemes, phony investment, security scams, and things like that, along with the Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs and Securities Division. And that brings me to, I'll call it sort of my baby in terms of the things that are most important to me that I've started at the office, and that's the Elder Abuse Task Force. Has anybody seen anything on TV about this? Because a few people. We've been going around the state, and I've been touring. In fact, we have an event this afternoon at 1 o'clock at Greater Grace Temple in Detroit with Justices Bernstein and Kavanaugh from the Michigan Supreme Court. And, some of the travesties that we've been seeing, quite honestly, here in Macomb County, in Oakland, and in a lot of other probate courts around the state are just terrifying to me. And the thing that, quite honestly, was the most upsetting to me is seeing how easy it is to get a full guardianship over another human being. And I was seeing these cases, maybe you saw one that's been on TV recently in Macomb County, where you would have a petition for guardianship. And remember, a full guardianship. When you get a full guardian placed on you, you basically have less rights than even somebody who's been convicted of a felony and placed in the Department of Corrections. You have no right to make medical decisions for yourself. You have no right to make financial decisions for yourself. It's like you're less than human when they do that to you. And sometimes they'll put somebody, you might have picked, you might have a power of attorney or other documents and say, listen, if that ever happens where I need that kind of assistance, here's my family member, or here's my close friend that I want to be my guardian. And the court can just totally disregard that and appoint you a professional guardian that you've never met before. You don't know anything about this person, and now they have 100% complete control over your life. Oh, and by the way, they can also decide if your kids or grandkids are even allowed to visit you. And it's horrifying to me. So I thought we have to do something about this. So I got together with the Michigan Supreme Court. We have a Chief Justice there named Bridget McCormick, who's really interested in this issue, and she assigned, a couple members of the court, Richard Bernstein and Megan Kavanaugh, and we're all working together. We put together this elder abuse task force. We have more than 80 members on the task force, plus 50 different organizations we're working with in the public and the private and nonprofit sectors, all who are working to change the way we treat seniors in this state. So we've had this 12-stop listening tour where we've gone all around the state, including we've been in Macomb County as well just last week. And we developed these 9 initial initiatives that we wanted to address right out the gate. And we've had other task forces that have worked to identify problems. And in the 1990s, this was done. Jennifer Granholm did it when she was governor in the 2000s. So we identified the problems, but we didn't create any solutions. So what's the point of just knowing what the problems are, but then not doing anything to try to solve those problems? So that's what we're doing. I have a feeling that a certain Representative Stone's name is going to appear on some of the pieces of legislation because they're really important. So I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I just want to go through a few of these really action-oriented initiatives. First of all, requiring that professional guardians be bonded and certified, including minimum training standards and establishing professional standards. Can you believe it? You need a license to have somebody, cut your hair. They need to have a license, but not to be a professional guardian. Literally anybody can go out and make up some cards and say they're a guardian and have complete control over your life, and they don't have to be licensed to do it. So that's kind of crazy. Reviewing the process of getting an emergency petition for guardianship or conservatorship, and making certain that there is a full hearing with the ward present and that requires medical testimony, so that you can't just come in and just say, oh yeah, well, my neighbor has been kind of out of it lately. It seems like she could use some help. And then all of a sudden that person has complete control over your life. I mean, it's crazy, right? You should have to have a doctor say why you need to have a guardian. And you should have the opportunity to be at that hearing to contest it. That's insane that we allow that. Limiting the number of wards per guardian. We see some guardians that have 500, 600, 700 wards. How can you possibly take care of that many people? You can't. It's impossible. Developing statutory basic rights for the family members and for the ward, including notice and the opportunity to file motions and documents and petitioning for visitation. Even if we had a situation with a child custody case where you said, well, maybe this parent shouldn't have custody because they have some issues and they can't properly take care of the child. It doesn't mean that we say to them, but you can never see your child ever again. You still get to visit. Why wouldn't we do the same with friends or family members of a person who is a guardian and still allow their family to see them? That's crazy. So that's one of the things we're doing. And this is one of the most important things to me. Reviewing the process of removing a person from their home and putting them into a nursing home. And that should not be the first go-to move when a person's having problems. That should be a last resort only. The first thing we should want to do is to make sure that somebody can go into a person's home to help them and assist them. Not take them out of their home, sell their home right out from beneath them, and then have somebody else who has control of all their money while they're sitting in a home and being over-medicated, which is another thing that we're going to be looking at. What kind of medicine are we permitting, doctors and nurses to give to people basically just to keep them stoic in there so that they won't cause any trouble? I mean, it's just so wrong at so many levels. So these are the things that we're looking at. These are just some of our initiatives, right? And we're going to continue to update those initiatives. I have another 3 years and 4 months of my term. And I will tell you, this is so important to me, and I'm going to be out there all day, every day, working as hard as I can to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect seniors in the state. I may or may not have just received my AARP card in the mail. So,
No shame in it.
I don't have any daughters, so I really need, I'm kidding, my sons, I'm sure will take great care of the son. But, I mean, this isn't just, I mean, here's the thing. You know, we all have our differences, right? And we might be we live in different places, we have different income levels, different political parties that we belong to, or different races or genders or ethnicities, but you know, the good Lord willing, we're all gonna be seniors one day, and we all deserve to be treated with respect and with dignity. And this is the most important work I think that I can possibly do in this office, and I'm gonna be out there all day, every day, working on this, and I hope that when you have issues, and everybody does at some point, please, in addition to calling Lori, call my office, call us at the Department of Michigan Attorney General, because that's what we're there for, and that's what you all have spent a lifetime paying your taxes for, is so that when you need help, you have somebody in the government there to provide it for you, and that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So, thank you very much. Sorry I'm so long-winded, I'm a talker, but I really appreciate the chance to talk to you about all of this stuff.
Thank you so much for sharing those insights. You know, in this day and age, I get a lot of distrust from communities, of government, a lot of questioning of media where they get sensationalized headlines or half of a story. And so it's really nice to have you come and share firsthand what's going on, the rest of the story. So when you're hearing something or there's speculation on social media, try to get the whole story firsthand. Reach out and find out what's going on. You brought up so many issues, and this position has given me the opportunity to really reach out in our community and learn about what some of these resources that are in and available to support you. We have representation from Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, who house the Adult Protective Services that Attorney General was talking about. And you know, as a teacher, you're familiar with Child Protective Services, and you know if something's going on and it's questionable, you know who to reach out to. But when it's your neighbor, or when you go to visit a loved one at a facility, then you walk away and you go, something didn't feel right, but what do I do now? And so would you like to just share a little bit about what you're doing in your office and how, the best way to reach you? Just to touch on a brief overview.
Oh, sure. Yeah, my name's Lisa Fisher. I'm the manager of Adult Protective Services. And we do have some pamphlets here in the back with our phone number on the back of them and a bit of information about our program. We have a 1-800 number set up where anybody can call an Adult Protective Services complaint in 365 days a year, 24/7.
What is it, please?
Pardon me?
What is it, please?
Oh, let me get it. I don't have it
Oh,
memorized.
I'm sorry. My apologies.
My memory is not that good. No, it's,
There you go.
yeah, number's on the back of this pamphlet. It's 1-855-444-3911.
Awesome.
That's also the same number you can call a Children's Protective Services referral in as well. Okay? When we get, and that's basically just a big call-in center where we take these complaints. Once you call in a complaint, we review it and we check to make sure it meets our criteria for investigation. With Adult Protective Services, we will investigate any case involving someone over the age of 18 who may be vulnerable and at risk of abuse or neglect.
Oh, that's a. I have a question.
Sure.
How many cases per month do you think you investigate?
Here in Macomb County, we're anywhere between 150 to 200 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oakland, we're around 250, 275. Depends on the county. Obviously, our volume is higher here in the Tri-County area because we have more senior citizens here. and a lot of disabled people.
And give me an example of the criteria that you would investigate.
Sure. We get a lot of calls, sometimes disabled people. They have no help in their home. They have no family, no friends. Maybe they've fallen and they've been laying in their living room for a few days. We get a lot of those calls. It's not just senior citizens we're getting calls on. We're getting a lot of calls on mental health situations. As you know, there have been a lot of cutbacks to our mental health system, and people are just not getting the treatment that they need, and they're hitting our radar.
So you're talking like, friends, family might be calling
Sure.
protective services?
Sure, and when you call in an adult protective services referral, you can remain anonymous. We will ask you for your name and phone number. We prefer that you do not remain anonymous because if we need additional information, it helps.
What about police? Would you hear from police, fire?
Oh yeah, we get calls from the police, emergency medical technicians, doctors, nurses, social workers.
And then
We get 'em from
do you guys do
banks.
the initial investigation, or do you reach out to another resource?
Well, when we get a case in that's accepted for investigation, we have to do what's called a 24-hour collateral contact. And so that's another thing. If you call in a referral to us, if you know somebody else who knows something about the situation you're calling, give us their name and phone number so we can talk to them. It's a big help to us. Then we are required to do a face-to-face contact within 72 hours. Unless it's an emergency situation, then we go out immediately. So we do that. We'll interview, the person that is the subject of the complaint, assuming they're able to talk to us and willing. We don't force ourselves on adults. We can't do that. But we are truly here to help. Okay, so yeah, we will try. And we'll try to link people with community resources to the best of our ability. Maybe a senior who's having a hard time getting to the grocery store, getting food. We'll make Meals on Wheels referrals, that kind of thing.
And it's fantastic. Our local MDHHS facility is right around the corner on Van Dyke. You can't get any closer. So for adult protective services, but as well as a whole host of services that they're able to assist our community with, please reach out to them. And if you're not sure where to go or where to go to, please call my office and we'll make sure we'll put you in touch with any department or community resources. Also, Attorney General Dana Nessel shared that the importance of, the concern with, being put into a home or assisted living facility. And several of the resources we have in the room are about keeping seniors in their home with the medical assistance that they need, with the services, with the social aspects taken care of for as long as they can, so that you're familiar with your surroundings, so you're comfortable. And so I see Oak Street Health is in the room.
Yeah.
Would you like to share a little bit about where you're located, who you serve, and what kind of services you provide?
Oh, sure. So we are Oak Street Health. We're a primary care doctor's office. We have 8 locations currently in Michigan. We're in Detroit, we're in Upper Rosedale, we're in Hazel Park. The closest location to you is in Hazel Park. So we have numerous providers that are available if you have Medicaid A and B, Aetna, Humana. Right now we're working to partner with Blue Cross, so we'll be able to see Blue Cross potential patients. I work from the Hazel Park location, and I got on board because I was concerned about our seniors. So as I stand here and listen to the representative and to our AG, it is just fascinating. I'm so glad to be here today because I've learned a lot that we can apply to our potentials coming in, to our patient. So I did bring some collaterals. If you want to sign up this sweepstake, we can give you more information in the mail that you can take and learn about how Oak Street Health can provide you adequate medical care as well. Not only do we do that, but Oak Street is changing the way healthcare visit is to your doctors. So we have a community center. From Monday through Friday, we have different events. Bingo every Monday, we have Tai Chi classes, exercise, cooking classes. So we want to engage you so you know that you are not just left alone in the community, that you have people you can rely on. So we have the primary doctor's office, and then we have our community center of different activities. And I work directly with the community center to make sure we come out and we visit you, we invite you in to be part of a community as a whole. So your overall well-being as a senior is not left unattended. So I advise you to please come do a tour to our location and learn a little bit more on how Oak Street can partner with you and keep you going in your home, your apartment, or wherever you may be. We come out and we get you as well. We provide you with transportation to your visit. We never leave you alone. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Also, we have the Disability Network represented. Would you also share?
Hi, how are you? Hi, my name is Rosita Rax, and I'm one of the program managers at Disability Network, Oakland and Macomb County. We are one of the SEALs, which is a Center for Independent Living. There's 15 in the state of Michigan, and we're the largest because we serve both Oakland and Macomb County. And so what we do is we're basically a one-stop shop for individuals who have a disability. We have a host of programs. If you're a veteran and you need housing, we provide personal rent security deposit and finding decent and affordable housing. If you are living in a nursing home, we have a nursing facility transition program where we not only find you decent and affordable housing, but we also pay personal rent security deposit. We pay for your food and your furniture. We also have an AT closet, which is our loan closet. So if you have an individual who needs a wheelchair, or they need a seat lift, or they need grab bars and things of that nature, we have a host of items that we give out to the community, and it doesn't cost you a thing. In addition to that, we have a lot of programs in our organization, whether they're community engagement, resources, information, and referral. So whatever you need, if there's someone that you know or yourself and you say, you know what, I have a disability and I just need help with Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, whatever it is, you call us and we do direct service for you. We're a small group. We have about 30 employees, but we're pretty powerful. So we go to a lot of community resources, events, and activities, and we help a lot of individuals, and we love what we do. So if you're ever in need of assistance and you have a disability and/or you are a senior citizen and you need direct care, we are there for you, and it won't cost you a thing. We also have a Living Well Michigan program, which we just got a grant, which is with MDRC, and what we do is we teach a 10-week course on healthy environments and healthy goals and communications and lifestyles, and we only charge a nominal fee of $10 for 10 weeks, and we provide lunch, and it's like a peer support and peer group, and we have a great time in that program as well. So if you check out our website, and we have more information there, we would love to help you, your family, your friends, to assist you to become a better person and have the resources and the information that you need.
Thank you.
Yes, gnom.org, which is www.d as in David, N as in no, O as in opera, M as in Mary.org.
Awesome, thank you.
That's great. Nonprofit organization?
Yes, we are a nonprofit
Thank you.
organization.
Who funds
This is
you?
for over 30 years. We get federal and state grants.
Terrific.
Yes, we have a host of resources in our community. Do we have a representative from PACE? Yes. I had the opportunity to come tour the facility just a couple weeks ago. And they share their services, help to divert seniors who might otherwise be referred to a rehabilitation center or a nursing home to try to keep them in their home as long as possible.
So my name is Karen Corridge, and I'm one of the outreach liaisons for Macomb County. We are a program of all-inclusive care for the elderly, and I say elderly kind of in jest because it's 55 and above.
That's not elderly. I object.
Yes. But what we are, our participants, what we kind of look for is folks that would meet a nursing home level of care, and I don't want that to scare anybody in the room, but what we look for is folks that might have problems with like mobility and transferring, any kind of cognitive issues, if people are having problems with memory, making decisions, that type of thing. Multiple medical issues, again, if the doctor says to somebody, hey, you know what, I really think that you would benefit from a nursing home, call us first. Our goals, we have Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne County. We have 5 centers. At our centers, we have an adult daycare center where folks can come and hang out with us from 8 till 5 usually. We also have our doctors there, and we have a full PT and OT rehab unit in which you can, I call it work out with our therapist as long as you would like. Most health plans, you might only get like 20 visits. With us, you can, as long as you're in our program, you can go and be in our gym. Also, again, I said our doctors are there. We also provide podiatry, dental, audiology, hearing, and vision services. Once you get into our program, all these things are at no cost to you. You no longer have deductibles and or co-pays for any of these services. So anything that you would need, DME supplies, incontinence supplies, anything like that, medications, anything that you need to maintain your independence in the community. Again, we're looking at keeping folks independent in the community with our help and the help of like caregivers. So, and that's pretty much what we do for folks.
Thank you so much. Do we have someone in the room from Macomb Community Action? No? Centerline Park Towers? Yes. Hi. Surprise.
My name is Jessica Johnson. I'm one of 2 service coordinators. My coworker Eleanor Beard. Raise your hand. We are 2 social workers at the Centerline Park Towers Apartments over on 10 Mile in Van Dyke. It's good to be here and meet all of you. Most of the people who've already spoken, we know. We are a senior building, Section 8, and tax credit for those who qualify income-wise. It's a home for people who are independent. However, we do encourage people to age in place. And how we do that is by bringing services. I'll be right here. No, not that one. Centerline Park Towers was actually built back in the 80s, so it's one of the oldest buildings in the area. And we're very pleased that we still have some of our original residents that are still there. And it's a wonderful place. We provide activities. We help our residents with their DHS paperwork, identify services. The whole idea is to keep them living independently for as long as possible. We do have a wait list, but you're more than welcome to come in and visit our property. Our ground floor has commercial tenants, so we have a full-service beauty salon, we have a mom-and-pop grocery store, we have a doctor's office, and a pharmacy that are located right there in our building. So we try to encompass our residents with everything they need in order to live independently. And I thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of information. Did anyone have any follow-up questions? Yes, Melody.
Hi, Melody. I cared here for my father, and we went through 4 years of a situation with his Social Security. Not only my dad, but I hear this from several seniors out there, even in the city of Warren, that they have problems and issues with their Social Security, whether it decreased or whether it increased or they cut it off altogether and they don't know why. And I find that the time it takes to try to work on their Social Security benefits, as it did my dad, it takes hours, if not days, if not months, working on that. Is there a program out there, and I don't know if it's Michigan Department of Health for seniors that will assist seniors with their Social Security benefits, instead of them waiting online for hours on the phone, or they can't understand the system, as far as the software being on the computer. We need someone that represents for Social Security that they can help our seniors.
Thank you. Please reach out to my office and we'll do our best to put you in contact with any resources we have. Yes, Larry?
I had to go see Social Security in person, and I actually had an appointment, and I still sat there for over 2 hours.
Oh, boy, 2 hours is
Yes.
Go to the 21 Mile Road one. It is so nice. And, honest, 21 Mile in Gratiot, that's where you want to go.
It's like the further you go, the more assistance you can get.
Yeah.
But 2 hours is like, that's really good.
That's the express lane.
Well, part of it is,
4 years to get my father. My father was declared dead. And it took me 4 years. My father didn't collect Social Security. We had
Wow.
to take care of him. And I talked to so many seniors that went through the same thing. It took them, if not years, months. And they were taking money out of their checks for overpayments that they knew nothing about. And it just takes so much time when it comes to Social Security. It's like, when are they gonna understand that seniors need to be taken care of and they need to make them a priority when it comes to their check, because that's their fixed check every month. And we need someone out there.
It is literally a Joseph Heller novel.
yeah.
It's crazy.
And I just wanted to follow up. You had mentioned like the further out you go, sometimes it's faster services. One thing I've learned is how we have a very dense population here between Detroit and Warren and the surrounding area, and so we have a lot of needs and resources, but it's also is shared among a lot of people. So sometimes people find like the further you go, you might be able to get more immediate action. But please know that the resources in our community are responsive. We have a lot of demand for resources.
But if I could say this, what is so impressive to me about everything that I've heard today about this area in Macomb County, because I've been on this elder abuse tour all around the state, as appealing as it might be for a lot of people to, if they can afford to retire up north, what happens unfortunately in some of these smaller rural communities is that they don't have all these services. So all these things that I just heard about, I mean, I'm just so grateful that all of you, that these resources are there for people to turn to, because you have to remember there's so many communities around the state where these resources just don't exist. And when you are a senior and you start having any of these issues, you have nowhere to turn. So this is amazing. And I mean, it's incredible, all of you that are working in this area and working obviously with a large population, and that there is so much available to everybody. But utilize those resources. And if I could just say this about EPS, unfortunately, like many of our state agencies, incredibly under-resourced, but they work very, very hard, and it's important when you see someone where you feel like something is off, and whether it's because you think that they're deteriorating a little bit, or maybe you notice that their grandson has moved in with them and suddenly a whole bunch of new motorcycles appear in the driveway, and you're starting to think, well, that can't be, Edith isn't driving those motorcycles. There's a lot of times, and they become more and more isolated. You start seeing them go out as frequently, and they're not answering when you call on the phone. Call APS, and let them know, because unfortunately the person that is most likely to take advantage of a senior is one of their own relatives. And that's sad to say, but it's just accurate. And if you don't call, then you don't know what's happening. And that's what they're there for, is to assist. So I would encourage you to make use of that if you have a concern about somebody.
Yes, and I'm very blessed to live in a community that everyone looks out for each other. Yes. I saw a couple more hands. Mary.
One of the things I've noticed, I have relatives that live in skilled nursing centers and memory care centers, and when you go in to visit, the staff is always, oh, hi, and they're real nice, but then when you talk to your relative or whoever the person that lives there is, they're not treated very well. And when they report, say, as somebody in aid or somebody that yanks them or does something to them, they get retaliated against. So what advice do you have?
Well, that's something that we're definitely looking at for the, what you're saying, we hear this over and over again, the same complaint, and people are afraid to make complaints because they don't want retaliation. Well, first of all, whenever you're looking at, for your friends, for a loved one, and they're being placed in any kind of facility, I would encourage you to visit that facility multiple times and at all different hours. Don't just go there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Go there at 3 o'clock in the morning and see what it's like, because the worst thing is when it seems like, you know, hey, from 9 to 5, this is well staffed and everything else, and then in the middle of the night, there's nobody there. So check into that kind of thing. And if you have a loved one who lives in a facility, go visit them around the clock, because believe me, the staff will notice and it will change the way they care for them. So those are things that are important to know about. But in terms of the retaliation, again, this is something that, you know, that my office needs to be dealing with. If you see that happen, and again, it is our job to work with law enforcement. And by the way, part of the initiatives that we have, and I didn't talk about this, are proper training for law enforcement. One of the biggest problems is, you know, at this point, law enforcement has been properly trained on domestic violence and child abuse, but not really elder abuse. They just really, they don't know what it is. They don't recognize it when they see it. And, you know, part of what we're doing is to change the training altogether so that right from the academy, they know what the signs are to look for that. And that they, in fact, have, you know, forms that they have to fill out whenever they're dealing with somebody who is a senior or someone else who's a vulnerable adult because of some sort of disability or injury or something, so that we can better address those issues. But what you're talking about, the retaliation issue, it's real, and that's why we need to beef up law enforcement to better deal with that, so that if there is such retaliation that takes place, that law enforcement appropriately deals with that. And that's what we're really trying to do. And we're partnering with all 83 prosecutors' offices on this, because unfortunately, like everything else, the prosecutors' offices, they're often not properly resourced, or they don't have the proper training sometimes. That's not true so much in Macomb, but some of the smaller counties have that issue even more. So we want to make sure that situations like that are being properly dealt with. And especially if it's in a nursing home, remember that is the jurisdiction of my office. So we can go in and we are, like I said, we've charged already 9 workers in nursing homes just in the last few months because of that kind of activity, and we're not going to tolerate it in my office. So call us, you know.
We tell teens, if you see something, say something. I think that goes for everyone.
Yes.
I saw another hand. Joel?
Yeah, just a question on that. When you talked about how if you end up in the court system and judges are allowing people to, you know, that the families don't know and take conservatorship of people and things like that, for people that are on limited resources, is there any kind of legal help available? Because, you know, when you talk about going into that system, if you don't have the resources, usually you can't do anything. And for people on fixed incomes or low-income families, what can they do? Because once they're in, then who's going to help them?
Sure.
You know.
Well, a couple things. One is there are a number of answers to that. There's a neighborhood legal services that you have in Macomb County that's actually pretty decent. So, you know, you might want to think about contacting them. But moreover, we want to make it easier for people. So we're trying to make the forms easier. We're trying to make it easier for non-lawyers to come in and participate in the system. The other thing my office is doing, and we've done this in Macomb, is when we get calls from family members who say something's not right here and they tell us the situation, one of the great things about being Attorney General is I'm allowed to intervene in any court case in the state. And so that means cases that are even between private parties, we can come in and we can file an appearance and we can review the file and we can make sure that it's being handled properly. And if not, we have the ability to make arguments on behalf of affected parties. And so we have been doing this more and more, and we've done it in Macomb, and we'll do it again. But one of the things I've been working on with the Supreme Court is making it so that, you know, a judge can't just say, all right, here's a decision I'm making, and I will not review it, and I don't have to review it for another 6 months or another year. Or things like, you know, sometimes a person does need help because they've suffered, say, an injury, or they've had something happen to them medically, and for a period of time they need help taking care of themselves. But that doesn't mean that they need a guardian forever and ever. People can get rehabilitation and maybe get back to a place where they were, and they have their cognitive abilities, and they have mobility. and they don't need to have a guardian. And why is our go-to move a full guardianship? Why can't we explore just having a conservatorship for somebody's money or limited guardians so that someone doesn't have all of that power over you? Like, help a person with the things they need, and for the other things, leave them alone and let them still have some autonomy. So these are all things that we're moving forward on, but I think the court forms that we're trying to create should make it so that you don't have to be an experienced licensed practitioner to be able to participate in the court system, and so that you'll have more of a say in terms of what's happening in your life and your family members' lives, and you're not at the mercy of the court system that you don't understand because it's too complicated. We want to make it easier for everybody to participate. Yes?
Dana, who in your office would you contact or send me to when you find a guardian and conservator that there's a conflict of interest and there's financial abuse?
Right.
So there's a list of basically corrupt.
Sure.
Guardian.
So our financial crimes division actually handles that. We have this amazing division head, a guy by the name of Scott Teeter, T-E-T-E-R. And I call him Captain America because he seems like he can kind of do it all. But we are getting very, very involved in those cases. And this is another reason, by the way, why it's so important that I have the Supreme Court working with me on this. Because sometimes the law is just fine. It's just not being implemented properly by the judges. And I'm not going to lie, Macomb is a problem. Macomb is a big problem. It's one of the counties that we are scrutinizing the most because there are judges that we don't think are acting appropriately. And,
They're breaking the law. They're breaking the law.
Well,
The
I'm not
laws
going
that are
to.
put in place, they put in place.
Well, because they've been allowed to operate unchecked. And that's why, and I will tell you that, I mean, I have talked to these justices on the Supreme Court. Remember, the reason it's so important to have them is because they're the ones who have authority over all of the other courts in the state, including the probate courts. And I'm going to tell you absolutely, I have their commitment that when they see conduct unbecoming a judge and where they're violating the laws, they're not working in concert with the court rules, that they're going to be disciplined. And they're going to face sanctions if they don't follow the law. And they're very determined to make sure they see the same stuff that you see. Just so you know, they are also seeing it. And so what they're doing is they're getting the transcripts from these cases and they're looking at it statistically. So one of the things they've started to do, and we've done on this task force, is we look county by county and actually judge by judge in terms of how many guardianships are being granted for the number versus the number that are petitioned. And are these all going to professional guardians who maybe have a relationship with the judge as opposed to going to the family members who you would seem most natural for that family member to take care of a person? And if they're choosing a professional guardian that maybe is somebody they know over a family member, there better be a damn good reason for it, in my opinion. Because there's no professional guardian that's going to take care of you better than your son or your daughter or your brother or your sister who has taken care of you and loved you for, their whole lives, right? And sometimes it's not appropriate. I mean, sometimes they're not as well equipped and it'd be good to have a professional who can assist. But these are the kinds of cases that they're scrutinizing, and I think we're going to see some significant changes. And I really believe with the work we're doing on this task force that we are going to see more progress in this area just in the first year of its existence than we've seen maybe in 30 or 40 years, because this has been a system that has been unchecked for so many years. And we need to make certain that the laws protect people as best as possible, but we need to make sure that we have judges that will follow those laws. And that's what's really important, and that's what we're standing up to make certain occurs.
Can I ask, how do you become a legal guardian as the training, or, because we've taken the guardian and conservator classes through Macomb County Probate Court, but it was
not
a pamphlet.
Right.
Well, and Macomb County doesn't offer
Right.
classes. You have to go to Oakland County. True. To take the class, but Macomb does not
So
offer that.
here's what we're going to be doing. So we're putting together, all right, we're trying to model what we think should happen in every county off of the counties that are operating really well. So we looked at, for instance, Kent County, which is Grand Rapids. And they have a great probate court system there. In fact, when we had our elder abuse event in Kent, it was funny because we still had a lot of people, speakers that were complaining, but none of them were from Kent County. They were all from Macomb and Oakland, and they had driven out to Grand Rapids to complain about their judges. And I was like, we're going to come over to where you are. You don't have to, come out here. But it partially was because the chief of the probate court there, he just set up this incredible unit where it was really in sort of a multidisciplinary approach to all the problems in probate court. And one of the things he'd done is he had created a training program that everybody actually in that court, if you want to become a guardian, they were required to do it there. But of course, that's not the case statewide. So we're going to be developing a program that will, it's not just a matter of making sure that you know what is required of you if you're going to be a guardian, but it's giving you all these tools, like all these great organizations. How would you know that they exist? I mean, this is great that they're here, but part of it is really the education piece, knowing, because when you're a guardian, that can be, especially if you're in the sandwich generation, and you're taking care of kids, but you're also taking care of your older parents. I mean, it can be so overwhelming, and you need as much help as you can get. And it's so amazing that you have all these great organizations that are out there, but they can't help you if you don't know about them. So part of your training as a guardian should also be telling you, here are all the places to turn when you need help. And so we are going to be implementing that, and it's one of our initiatives. So I'm sorry that you don't have those resources now, but you will. And we're going to make sure you know about that. And thank God you have such an amazing state rep here who can also give you all of that information and help you with all of that. But we're going to make that statewide very soon.
I did have just one more thing. I did visit the hotline. We are going to make a formal complaint, except for the paperwork is a little too much, a little complicated. So is there someone that we can, other than the Scott Teeter person, to help us fill out to make the formal complaint?
Well, what you can do is you go to our website and give us as much information as possible, and someone will contact you, and then what we do is we go in and we pull the court file. So you don't have to give us everything. We'll go out and that's what our investigators are for.
Right.
So we'll go out and take a look at it. But if you give us the basic information, then that allows us to at least know enough to go out, pull the court file, take a look and see what's happening.
Well, we personally have our own evidence that someone needs to see in our case.
Thank you for getting
that's
involved.
what we're there for.
About
Yes.
30 boxes, so
Yes.
yeah,
Well,
we need to sit down with somebody.
Well, that's the thing about this unit, and I'm a former prosecutor. I worked in Wayne County for many years. And, especially when it involves complicated financial documents, and this is one of the things that we're going to be doing with our initiatives, is to make it easier but also mandatory for more frequent reporting, so that you don't have a situation where a guardian comes in or a conservator comes in and then a person's money all of a sudden that they've saved over the course of a lifetime goes out the door. You don't know what happened to it. By the time you do, it's too late because that money's gone. But, that we have forensic accountants that we work with because we know how complicated these scenarios sometimes are.
Right.
So, just know that we're there for that, and contact us, give us the gist of what's happening, and then that allows our investigators to go out and to take a closer look at everything. And those 30 boxes, I'm glad I don't personally have to do that, but I have some great staff. I'm telling you, some of the best public servants you've ever met work for me, and so they'll take a look.
I want to thank everyone for coming out and participating. I really appreciate your time. And now that you've learned, I hope you take this back into the community and help spread the word to anyone who couldn't be here. Help us get the word out about having an Attorney General who is proactive and responsive, and that we have resources. And ultimately, if you're looking for a point of contact to reach out to these resources, reach out to my office. I have an amazing staff. They're working very hard for you. We'll make sure that we can help you out. If you're interested in continuing this discussion, pardon me, or you want to discuss more about other issues that are going on in the community, I have several upcoming community conversations tonight at Coonan's at 6 p.m. Come join me for a pint in politics.
I could never do that
Right?
because once I had a pint, you'd never shut me up. So that's a terrible idea.
Next Monday, August 5th at 10 a.m., I'll be at Hometown Heroes for more conversation. And in the evening, next Monday at 6 p.m., we'll be at Bush Branch Library across from Fitzgerald High School to continue these conversations. I invite you to come out and talk about what is important to you, what needs to be on my radar, or what's going on in Lansing. You know, there's a lot of questions about, well, what are you doing? What's going on? This is what I hear is going on, so what's the rest of the story? Before you leave, please help yourself to some coffee and donuts. Visit the local community partners to learn about services that are available. And check out some of the informative brochures that you can take with you. The latest update on what's going on in my office in Lansing. I have a town hall coming up for the Progressive Women's Caucus. It's part of a listening tour to find out about women's issues and to share what we're doing from Lansing and throughout the state to address those issues. So please come and don't let this conversation stop here. Let us continue on. And last but not least, join me in thanking Attorney General Dana Nessel.
Thank you all. Thanks for coming out and listening. I really appreciate it. And it's great to be here.
If we get everyone staying there, see if we have a raffle at the end after.
Oh,
after we have that.
I think we're ready. Do you want to pull?
No, we're
Oh,
yes.
yes. Oh, yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your great work. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for
Really
helping
great to
coordinate.
meet you.